Hey everybody, this is Perch. I want to throw an idea out for you to contemplate and consider, if you don't mind. Um, a lot of the stuff we talk about, what I'm about to say is not that unique. You've heard it before, and chances are you agree with it, at least on some level. At least half of it, almost guaranteed you agree with it. But it's that other half that gets a little tricky. Um, the people talk a lot online about a number of things, and if you go onto Twitter, what you'll see is, or Facebook, or YouTube or any places where people are talking, the CBR boards. It doesn't just have to be social media. It can be just general fan interactions online. And one thing you'll notice is a decent amount of people talking either about how everything is broken, Vita is getting too much work. The companies are obsessed with woke content. They're ruining everything. Or you will see groups of people who will talk about current era like it is the best era there has ever been. There have never been comics better than this. The most popular writer in all of comics is clearly Mag Saggio. And this is, everybody wants this. Everybody's excited about this. The Pride issues are the best-selling issues of the year. But you'll see both of those perspectives going on. You'll see, back in the day when I was running a shop, I would call it the too far down the rabbit hole point of view, where you have, individuals and you'd see them show up at conventions and they'd get in there and they're just way too into something. Can you tell me what type of leather? This is a real question I heard once. What type of leather does Gambit wear in his trench coat? And is it vegan friendly? Is it faux leather? Because as a hero, Gambit, almost certainly would not want to wear something that harmed animals. And I watched I forget who was, I think it was Peter David. I think that was during this brief period where he had kind of reimagined X Factor. A lot of people have forgotten about this one. And it was like Serval Industries, and it had, I think Danger was on the team and Gambit was on the team. And it was a completely different, all different X Factor. It didn't do well. People were like, just bring back Madrox and Layla and Rain and Strong Guy, and like, can you just do that? Anyway, all different X Factor. But somebody stood up there and asked about what type of leather and if it was vegan friendly, in a jacket in a comic book. And I remember in the crowd, the person asked this question, and a lot of the people start laughing because they should, because it was an absurd question. It wasn't anything that needs to be taken seriously. One of the things that's happened with the online communities is that we now take stuff seriously that wasn't meant to. I mean, I think comics is a serious business, meaning we need to treat it well. We need to focus on getting money out of it. We need to make sure we're doing better to, help, creators know what's selling and what's not, and so on. I mean, there's a lot of parts of that are serious, but it's also an industry designed for entertainment that you're not meant to take deathly serious. You're meant to enjoy it. And so if you go to a convention or you go to a place where there's, people interacting, one of the mistakes that I think people make, and especially they're making it now online, is that they go there assuming that the audience that they talk to on the Saturday, Thinking Critical, I'm not picking on him, but that show in the chat room is the same audience you're getting in that convention center. It is not. The vast majority of the people there do not care about the woke content or about, what books Vita are on or, any of that. Or, frankly, and I remember very vividly, the internet exploded over Kelly Sue DeConnick's, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book comment. And I remember going to a convention and tabling there and expecting that people were going to be asking about that. So like, ooh, what do you think? I remember having a conversation with somebody in my shop who was helping, like a worker. So I'm a worker. I said that in the most awkward way possible. An employee. And I remember the employee and I going, I don't know, should we bring less copies? of her books, because I think there's going to be, I don't put them out front and center, because I don't want people to see that and get pissed, because, this interview is so alarming. Nobody asked for it. Nobody talked about it. Nobody knew it happened. And it's that last bit that's the most important. Nobody knew it happened. I want you to put two and two things together for me for a second. You've probably seen videos dunking on Marvel and DC and creator, interviews there about how low the hits are. About like how, oh, look, Jerry Duggan was on talking about how he's going to wrap up the X-Men, and it only got like 400 views. Yeah. And isn't that funny? And, what a loser, and why can't Marvel do anything right? And other mean things I could say about Jerry Duggan. This people were making fun of it, and they're right to, from a perspective of Marvel as a giant corporation, works under Disney, should be able to get the word out better, should be able to get those views up, should, but people, they've conditioned people that their YouTube channel has cooking demonstrations with Jed McKay, or just things that are, quite frankly, not very interesting. And so people don't watch. If people don't watch, they do not hear the comment of, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my books. They don't hear a lot of the toxic stuff. Nobody, how many people going to a convention know that Dan Slott is a tard on Twitter? That he's a jerk? How many people know that, some random cat LOL 45 misgendered Grant Morrison, and, some kind of a rando fan who's self-published a couple books, dunked on him? Nobody knows this stuff because nobody is really seeing it. Yes, I understand the communities are big on YouTube. Wow, those subscribers numbers are great. Look at the views. Look at the people showing up in chats. Look at all the money making up super chats. And that's fine. It's not bad. That's not to say that's not worth anything. Of course it's worth something. You're able to make some money off of it. It's good. But, and by the way, the other it's the other side. It's not even extreme. The other side is also true. No, the vast majority of comic book fans, 98% of them, do not think that the Pride issue is the best, highest selling book of the month. For the record, of course it's not. They do not worry about the meat quantity of Gambit's coat. They don't fangirl out over Betsy and Rachel coming out and being a couple. If anything, they're just confused. And when they're confused, they just don't buy. Comic sales are lower. And, this is one of those, it's the same thing. You're splitting hairs, basically. You're arguing something, but it winds up being the same thing in the end. It winds up being the same result, but it's not the same thing. And it's this. Comic fans, people who are readers, are not tuning out of comics because they're too woke or because of the politics of the creator on Twitter. They're not going, hey, if this creator is going to insult me, then they don't get my money. They're tuning out because the content's dull, because there isn't anything exciting about, a book, a superhero book, where, Betsy Braddock, Psylocke, gets whisked off to a magical dimension, becomes Captain Britain, and falls in love with Rachel Summers, who's now Ascani, I think is the new name. That's not entertaining content. That's the problem. Now, you could say it's not entertaining because it's not entertaining because politics or there's a lot of, and you may be right, by the way. But for the majority of fans reading comics, looking at this stuff, they don't know. That our fans, somebody asked me about, do you think more fans are outraged by how Vita Ayala got so many comics in such a short period of time? And the answer is no. Do you know why? Because they don't know Vita is on a lot of comics, because they're not buying those comics. We have had conversations where it's like, who is this Vita Ayala people are complaining about on YouTube? And I'm like, oh, well, Vita is currently writing, New Mutants. And the response was like, "Oh yeah, I don't. That's like the secondary or third biggest book. I'm not I'm not reading that. That just doesn't have any interest for me." What else? What else does this beta write? Like, oh, a couple. There's some static over in DC. It's like, okay, so I don't read that book either. What else? It's like, some short stories and the latest anthology, Voices anthology. At this point, the person who's talking to you is like, okay, I don't know who this is. And they don't. A lot of the names you hear about online, yes, they keep getting work, not denying it, but nobody's buying that work. And if you go to a convention and you walk around the floor, nobody knows who these people are. They do know the big names. They still know Art Adams. People will show up for him. People will show up for Frank Miller. People will show up for Sean Murphy. People show up. They'll show up for people who have led and done big books. But the rest of this stuff, it's a miss. It's a miss when we're thinking about comics and how we're connecting with those fans and what we're thinking about. And by the way, the creators are equally at times distracted by this in the wrong way. They get overly obsessed with like, ooh, look what's going on Twitter. Look what the dialogue in here. Look what Tess Fowler is saying. Look what's that angry guy on YouTube, the hate guy. What's he doing? No, the people who are watching that stuff are into it. But the majority of comic fans are just, going to buy comics. And the reality is they're buying less comics. And they're buying less comics because, frankly, a lot of them are less interesting. Now, are they less interesting because of all this stuff? Probably. I definitely think they're less interesting because a lot of the people involved in creating them are busy fighting each other and and arguing online about who the next president's going to be versus kind of the comic they've got. But I guess the conclusion of all this is don't be the guy who is worried about the whether Gambit's trench coat was ethically created. Ethically? Is that it? Meat ethically? I don't know. Don't be that person. Nobody likes that person. Thanks for listening.